Our Toastmaster magazine, mine in particular, is a waste. According to the magazine, it says that there are like 32 pages in the magazine. Mine has 14 pages in it. It's got so little in it. Huh. Let me take you back to this past Saturday. Had a very productive morning, enjoyed it, and I said to my wife, "Dear, I love it. It's beautiful outside. I'm going to go out in the front yard, out by our silver maple tree where there's a nice shady area when the sun in the afternoon hits the tree in the right way. I'm going to go out, I'm going to get our anti-gravity chair out of my trunk." Anybody know what an anti-gravity chair is? Those kind you sit in and you get to kind of rock back, but it's still a lawn chair. Set that out in the yard, right in the middle of that nice shade patch. I go in the house to grab some magazines. I grabbed 3 magazines, got my sunglasses, my bifocal sunglasses so I can read, and of course, a pen. I took my 3 magazines and I head outside. First of all, I grabbed Success magazine, which I love, a magazine that has tremendous content. I am constantly getting new ideas and information from it. Secondly, I actually grabbed a recent issue of Sports Illustrated with the Buckeyes on the front. Go Bucks! And thirdly, I grabbed a little thinner magazine called the Toastmaster Magazine. So I get all situated, I've got my pen, I've got my glasses, I'm sitting there in the front yard, and I started reading through. I'm going to zip through the Toastmaster magazine, it's the thinnest one. So I flipped to the first page in the magazine. There's an article by the international president of Toastmasters. He's talking about the transition that he's making coming out of the president role of the international organization. And he takes a stance of his focus isn't so much on what's next for me and what did I accomplish in my reign, but his focus is on what do we want to do better for the next year for Toastmasters. I thought, ooh, I gotta get my pen out and make a couple of notes because I can look at that relative to my own business and some of the things that I'm doing rather than focusing on my past term. What is it I want to do next? So you know what? It's a good enough point I want to think on. So rip, it goes in a file for reading. I continue on with the magazine. I get to page 8. On page 8, I come across an article that says memory lapses during speeches. Oh, I better get my pen out. I get my pen out and I start highlighting a couple of notes. There's 4 tips about how to deal with the loss of memory in the middle of a speech. One of them is actually to pause, which can actually help people understand the point better while you regroup. Another one of the tips, I'm not going to tell you all 4, you're going to have to read it yourself, but one of the other tips that I thought was really good is restate the last sentence that you just said and then treat it like table topics. Because as you treat that last sentence you gave like table topics and begin to expound upon it, often it's long enough to get you back into the groove to complete your speech. There's 2 more ideas. This goes in my speech prep and plan file. I continue to read. I get to page 13. There's an article with 5 points about how to turn around a Toastmasters club. Some very interesting ideas and concepts in here, including handwritten notes that go to visitors and a variety of social media suggestions and tips. There's also a top-notch target. They give you 10 different targets you can set for your club. Rip. Take out the pen, highlight a couple things. Guess what? That goes in my next Toastmaster meeting file to make sure that I share with my club. I continue on. Page 15. There's a social media usage for Toastmasters article. They have 10 ideas on ways clubs can maximize their website. Interesting. rip out my pen, rip that page out of the magazine, and it goes into my file for sharing for the next Toastmasters meeting. One of the things that's on here is talks about actually interviewing visitors and members and the value that they've gotten from the club and posting it on your website. I'm learning iMovie and producing a bunch of videos these days. I'm willing, if we want to take advantage of that as a club, to provide some videos that we could put on our website. I continue on. I move on to page 23. On page 23, there's a from free to fee article for those that want to be paid to speak. Ooh, this one, I just about ran out of ink with my pen. Note after note after note. There's 7 tips for emerging professional speakers. I highlighted a number of those, a number of tips. There's a speaker's resource listed on page 25 for those that want to get into professional speaking. I go to the next page, page 26, elevator speeches. How do you convey a message to somebody that says, hey, what do you do? I scribbled some more. It just continued until I finally got to the last page, Stop It, where there's an interesting, fun article about statements like, it's raining outside. It's like, well, where else does it rain? So the guy ends up having a lot of fun. How do you use your Toastmaster magazine? I hope after today's speech, you take advantage of the value that's in there, because there's so much available to you. Thank you.